It's Friday, and what a week it has been. Lots of stuff going on, certainly around here. And there's been some really interesting projects that have come onto crowdfunding in the last few days, certainly, in the last couple of weeks. And we've got an interesting selection for you this evening. So we have something that's very, very, very indie indeed. We have something that is a project for one of the least indie games ever at this point in time, and of course something from a relatively major minor publisher. More importantly, there are some great projects that are about to stop their campaigns. So as we talked about Astro Inferno before, please do check that out whilst we've only got a few days left. That's my favourite project that is currently coming up to the end of its run. And I just want to give Andreas Rue a shout out there for the great time that we had in our interview not so long ago. But for now, let's talk about what's going on in the realm of crowdfunding with new projects. So with Devious Dungeons, Foreboding Forests, and The Coolest Cats, my name is Phil, and welcome to the Dark Orb. Hey, and I just want to say a welcome, very warm welcome to James Kerr, who we've not seen before.
Hello, Phil. Hello, Bruce. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. Yeah, we had a really very brief conversation earlier on when I announced that one of the games that we're going to be talking about today is a game based on some of my favourite movie and video game genres of all time. Well, it's one genre really, let's face it. And James was like, hey, how can I help? So he is here to talk about the first project that we will be discussing very, very shortly. And Bruce, welcome back. It's a pleasure as always. Your camera is looking sharper than it has in a while, my friend.
That's because I got the blur background to hide the mess that is on every week.
Yeah, I'm
Also,
also
it makes you look sharper as a result.
I'm also hiding a messy bedroom here, so I understand. Like the struggle is real. That's...
The only reason why this place doesn't look like a mess is because half of my life is in storage right now. But that's a story for another time, and most of our viewers have probably heard that before. It's been a really interesting couple of weeks. There's some great projects on things like Humble Bundle right now. We've seen that Warhammer. I've forgotten what the name of the project is. Bruce, remind me.
Soulbound. Yep.
Soulbound is on Humble Bundle right now. The original Gumshoe stuff is on Thingy of Holding. Jesus,
Bundle of Holding, yep.
Bundle of Holding. I should have guessed that because Bundle is in both of those names. I'm having a struggle today. Some really cool stuff. But let's talk about crowdfunding. And I think we should ask James to tell us all about this really cool game, Fight to Survive. Because I think out of everyone here, James, you've probably got more knowledge than the rest of us combined.
You know, I probably do. And I only say probably because we have some playtesters that have been involved in years at this point that might run circles around me in terms of the rules. But this is Fight to Survive, role-playing martial arts meets heart.
Oh, why is German? My Kickstarter keeps flicking to German. I don't speak German. I don't know why it's doing it. Must be a Chrome thing.
Oh, it's
still doing it.
It believes in your ability to adapt, I guess, to life circumstances.
So,
Fight to Survive, role-playing martial arts meets heart is an indie game. It's a Canadian game. I'm Canadian, and I've been in the role-playing industry for about 4 years in a paid capacity. Most of my work has been through Pendelhaven Press, which is also a Canadian role-playing game publisher. They do Fate of the Norns, which is a Viking game where you draw runes. So this is the first game that I've done under Radio James Games, my publishing house, but it's not my first Kickstarter. I've run Kickstarters in the past, and it's not the first time I've had development credit. So, but it's the first time I'm doing the whole thing myself, except for the art, obviously, because I'm not an artist. But the art is done by Ian McLean, who has done art for Call of Cthulhu and Pathfinder in the past, and so he's got pedigree, as well as a number of indie stuff. And this is the game. It's a weird game. It's a niche game with niche content. It's based on the idea of both martial arts, doing a martial arts game properly, and trying to capture the heart and the beats of the kind of stories that are pervasive within the genre. It's kind of born out of two ideas, which is one, I was dissatisfied with how martial arts is dealt with in tabletop role-playing games, both that it is either overly detailed, like Eric Wujcik's Ninjas and Super Spies is a good example, where you have to actually know martial arts in order to play it, or it's so heavily abstracted that it might as well just be a list of superpowers themed after David Carradine's life. So I wanted to make a fighting game structure that felt intuitive, that you could still give some depth to, but you didn't have to know martial arts in order to participate and play and have fun. I have a martial arts background, so I probably put too much nerdy stuff in this, but I'm hoping that it's very intuitive and friendly for people who don't have that kind of background. And then the other design impetus behind this was I was watching Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and there's a scene where he's on a Hong Kong bus and it's playing Stan Bush in the background, like a love song, like On My Own or something like that. And he looks in the mirror of the bus and he sees his enemy, Chong Li, and then quickly darts over to the other side of the bus. He's not there, so he's feeling haunted by his enemy. And I thought, wow, why can't we do that in a role-playing game? Why can't we do that? And here's the next step. Why can't we do that relevantly in a role-playing game? Because a lot of the stuff that happens in tabletop role-playing games, when they want to emulate something like a fighting genre, it happens in hand-wavy downtime. Mm-hmm. And nothing that you develop, speaking as a developer, like putting my developer hat on, if you want people to play with something, you need mechanical reinforcement. Otherwise, it'll get shuffled under the rug, and everything that is mechanically reinforced will rise to the top. So let's make a mechanical reinforcement for the kind of emotional, interesting story beats, so that we're not just getting into fights. We have a context for getting into fights. We have a why are we getting into fights? What is it going to mean to get into fights? There are stakes for getting into fights. Fight to Survive is mundane and it's gritty. So it's not like Street Fighter 2. I love Street Fighter 2. I was an arcade champ in the early 90s. But this is more geared towards a Cynthia Rothrock kind of movie fest. It's more geared towards the Shaw Brothers Kung Fu films or the Golden Harvest productions.
I really loved those movies. I've got to say, I mentioned this earlier. I mean, Cynthia Rothrock, when I was like 12, I had such a huge crush on her. And movies like American Ninja and, that sort of, I just loved it. I mean, it's in the back, they haven't aged very well.
Well, some of them have and some of them haven't, right?
Like, of them, damn it.
I'm right there with you. And some of those tropes are wonderful, and some of them did not age well. But like the thing is, you can cherry pick a lot of these things. Like we were talking before the interview about video games. There's kind of a wonderful, weird reciprocal relationship between American martial arts films and video games and Japanese video games, and how they feed back on each other in weird ways. And I wanted to participate in that. Like, I want to get in on that in terms of like, I don't know how well you know Final Fight, for instance, from 1991. The Final Fight structure, like its story and its events and even its characters, are based on a 1975 Charles Bronson film called Hard Times. So the film was adapted into being the video game. Well, it's a good movie. You should look it up. It's about a 1930s drifter who comes to town and sorry, I'm getting my wires crossed here. I've done too many interviews. The structure of it is based on Streets of Fire, which is the 1984 Walter Hill film. This is also a Walter Hill film. 1984 Walter Hill film. That plot got lifted and applied into Final Fight. Hard Times, the backgrounds in Hard Times were all used for Street Fighter 2. So it's got, like, between Walter Hill films and Capcom, you've got this weird reciprocal relationship going on. And then you've got Streets of Rage on the Sega Genesis being based on Final Fight, feeding back into the films that it was being based on. And it's there's a whole kind of artificial martial world in American pop culture in the late 20th century that I really wanted to invest in and explore. And this game is an avenue for doing that.
And I really loved, out of all of those video games, Streets of Rage 2, I guess, probably, was my absolute favourite. But obviously things like Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter, the original, I played in the arcade, but I didn't really play at home. Street Fighter 2 I had on the Super Nintendo, and obviously Streets of Rage 2 on the Mega Drive, as we called it, the Genesis.
Well, there we go. You have a great pedigree then.
And
going
Teenage
in.
Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter.
Yep. It's a great game. One of the first games to have super moves in it.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
No one's played that.
No, it's a great game. There's
It's
still
so
there's
good.
a
It's so
minor
good.
tournament scene online still with that.
Wow, I haven't played
but-
it in forever. I've got it. I've got my Super Nintendo. It's in storage. So we keep talking about having a little retro setup and actually having our consoles, kind of.
Well, I
set up
endorse
on the
this.
shelving,
You put on a Cynthia Rothrock VHS like China O'Brien, or my personal favorite, I think, is Martial Law 2, and put that on and play some Super Nintendo. I can't imagine a nicer afternoon.
I haven't watched Martial Law or Martial Law 2 in probably 25 years. So I need to fix that.
Yeah, the first Martial Law is a little bit rough to go back to because I have such high respect for David Carradine. It's rough to see him at his low. But anyway, like off topic. So
let's talk about the system.
The point is, this system is meant to emulate those kinds of structures. It's a bit of a strange system. There's two main focal points to it: is the fighting and the living, I guess, the martial arts and the heart. For martial arts, it's a diceless system. It uses a comparison of moves. So you might go into a round and say, I'm going to choose punch and kick. And then it's a call and response of like, okay, I'm going to start by punching him. And then your opponent responds with a kick. And you're like, okay, a kick beats a punch. So I'm going to get hit unless what other moves do I have here? Oh, I'm going to block. And then, and on it goes. Then when you run out of moves, you get hit. It's meant to be short. It's meant to be quick. It's meant for fights to be vicious. There's a tension within the system of trying to set up something that is not realistic because you can't chase realism, but certainly verisimilitude, the sense of being in a fight with the fun of the more ridiculous aspects of, maybe not the more ridiculous aspects, but, where the genre can sometimes go in terms of its film interpretations. So that's the fighting structure. And then there's a structure of hardship in the game, which is really pivotal. So anytime anything happens that's lousy to you, like your dog ran away or you lost your job or you whatever else, you get a hardship. And just like harm, which is usually understandable within the role-playing game structure, if that meter exceeds, you're injured or you're dead or whatever, there's a hardship structure that if you exceed that meter, you choose no longer to participate in this lifestyle of violence. So you want to prevent that from happening. You want to be able to stay in this lifestyle. So you have a series of comforts, people, places, and things that are important to you. So I might have a comfort for my girlfriend, Sally, and for the place of Riva's Diner, where I like to go to get pie, and my sports car that I drive. Mm-hmm. So if my hardship is getting too high, I know that I've got +3 in Riva's Diner. I'll go to Riva's Diner and relieve 3 hardship. And so it mechanically reinforces things like that bus scene in Bloodsport, and you need to go travel based on the things that you like. Now, here's the twist: every game night, those comforts are what's under threat. So somebody just stole your sports car. You'll need to get it back. If you don't get it back, then that hardship goes on your character sheet, and you could end up snapping or flipping out or whatever else. And Riva's Diner, it's under attack by thugs. Or your girlfriend, she's been kidnapped. And
so that then builds your scenarios kind of by default, but also,
exactly, it builds your scenarios by default.
But it also very much sets out the stakes, and those stakes are very tangible stakes. We're not talking about I've got to go on a quest to rescue the princess. It's my personal safety and the few possessions that I own are at risk, at threat, and if I don't react to that, then I will lose something important.
Exactly. You lose something important to you.
Cool.
And those comforts are shared. So like I might like going to Riva's Diner, you might like going to Riva's Diner, but my girlfriend Sally might be your sister. So that's what's connecting the player characters that might otherwise be very disassociated. Like I might not have a martial art. My journey might be in finding a teacher and learning something, but you might be a karate guy. And you might be a boxer, and et cetera, et cetera. So we could be disparate. We could be from the different schools, rival schools, even, and we have to unite in order to get back Sally, who's been kidnapped by the River City gang, and she's being held in the junkyard that we need to go raid in order to, et cetera, et cetera. So it's hitting, but getting into fights is dangerous and leads to hardship. And then in order to get out of that hardship, you need to employ your comforts, which are under threat, which makes you need to fight. And so it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle of violence.
So it's a very cheerful friendly game. Very.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horrible and it's punishing, and it's not a power fantasy. It's about the the tragedy, the glory and tragedy. I don't know. Like all the emotional beats that you might get on a Saturday afternoon of pro wrestling is all wrapped up in your game of martial arts and violence in a grummy city in the middle of the 20th century.
And occasionally the tracking goes out of whack, and then everything just sounds weird.
The tape eats itself, and everybody has to sit there with pencils trying to rewind the.
No, I do just want to. Obviously, we don't need to watch this whole thing because you're on the video and you're here, so don't need that. But I think it's really cool. If you don't mind, we'll just watch that first bit of this video.
Yeah,
which is really fun.
Frail heroes in a desperate.
Let me start that again. Hopefully we can hear that now.
Frail heroes in a desperate world, throwing punches, throwing kicks, throwing away their lives. After 7 years in training, this is Fight to Survive, a tabletop role-playing game of martial arts meets heart. This is a game about martial artists in the 20th century. It is a mundane, emotional game about tough guys and ferocious gals, their teachers and their successors in a martial lineage, where most situations are violent and usually end in sadness. If you want a game about street fights over bad gambling debts, of kidnapped partners and kicked-in martial arts school signs, of staying golden and staying alive, of struggles against hardship and the glory and tragedy of solving conflicts with your fists, then Fight to Survive.
So cool. So cool. Sorry guys, I stopped that accidentally a little bit too soon. You get the idea. It's very, very sweet. I like the look of it a lot. And let's have a look.
Hi, I'm James Kerr. I'm a
what's
writer,
up,
developer,
James?
publisher. There's two of me.
That's just the best place.
That
to
face
pause
too.
it as well. Let's do that. There we go. That's
Thank
better.
you. Thank you.
Sorry. In terms of pricing, I think you've done a really nice set of tiers here. So it's £8, $12 Canadian for the digital edition, and then is that the?
I mean, it's pure selfishness, Phil, because I just want to. I'm in the hobby. I'm a publisher by day, so the process is pretty easy. Like, I don't know why we expect people in the trade, in the tabletop roleplay game industry who do it as a hobby to be able to learn an entire profession in their spare time. But I'm a publisher, so the editorial is done, and we're just talking an art budget here. Like, I just want to be able to pay people fairly and evenly, and not expect a lot of spec work. So it's an art budget. It's an editor to edit my work, because God knows what mistakes I made, and a sensitivity reader, because the nature of the content can be very sensitive. We're talking about a lot of different cultures at work, and I'm only one culture. That's what we're talking about. So I try to keep the prices low. It's print on demand, because we're in the middle of an ink crisis, a paper crisis,
it's
right?
Very challenging right now.
Otherwise, I would be doing an offset print run, because I'm a snob when it comes to ink quality, and that's the life that I live. But I think in this case,
it's so hard to predict right now.
Well, the thing is, I wanted to put the choice in people's hands, right? Because with that $12 Canadian, or however much that is in pounds, you know exactly how much is going to pay for the art, and paying for the publishing, and paying for the editor, and then you have the control over when you get it printed and shipped to you, so that it's not like a surprise, that you're in control, you're managing it. Because the way things are fluctuating right now, we're a community. Right? Like, people talk a lot about businesses, but tabletop role-playing games is a community. And so it's our job to get things out to people, and to make wonderful things that people can interact with. So let's do that. So I don't particularly care about the money. I just want to get it funded so that it can exist. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can help you there with getting some people to see how cool a game this is. So it's $12 if you're on a budget. That's kind of the community focused tier.
Absolutely. So it only went live yesterday. The Kickstarter. It's almost 50% funded now, so we'll be fine, right? We're going to be fine.
It's really cool.
And
yeah, $16, so a little bit more for the standard digital, which, I mean, that's a really fair price. There's a lot of pages, there's a lot of art. I've been kind of pushing a little bit lately that I actually think, and there is a fine balance, but I actually think a lot of RPG project founders on Kickstarter are actually underpricing their PDFs right now, and I think, kind of community focused stuff and hardship tiers aside, I think there's a little bit more of a resurgence of understanding how much art goes into Kickstarter, and I don't just mean physical drawing art, but also the writing, etc.
Well, Phil, it's true. It's true. Like it's just flat out true. But the problem is that this is an industry. I love the industry. I love the people. I've been to Gen Con and back and everything, but and I've been in it for years. But you've got an industry that typically undervalues the people who work in it,
100%.
And a client base or a customer base that doesn't really like paying for things. Right?
But don't you think it's interesting how you can charge $10 or $15 for? We're going to talk about a Mörk Borg project in a little bit, and I'm not specifically talking about that project, but you could find a 40-page supplement for that system or mothership or something, and it'll be $15. And then you have a project like yours, which is 200 plus pages, and this isn't a criticism of you, but one feels that if it's more than $15, it's too expensive. I mean, they're not really equivalent in terms of content, but that's kind of how it is. And I do appreciate the way that Monty Cook, not to their extent at least, but the way that they actually value their PDFs to be a lot higher. And we were talking last week, I think, about how Chaosium has a really interesting way of doing things where you buy the PDF, and if the PDF's popular enough, then they turn it into a physical and you get a rebate. And I think that's really an interesting model to get to, but getting there is the challenge, isn't it?
Well, I think that's where the industry needs to go, honestly. And the other place that I think it needs to go is different layouts for print versus digital. Because what looks good in print is not what looks good in digital. And you don't want to pay somebody to lay the whole darn book out twice, but that is what's going to have to happen. Because more and more people I know are just going strictly digital, and the layouts aren't going to look. It's just not the same principle for reading, right? So yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's the tension because, like, we've got an industry that undervalues it's the people who work in it, who expect a lot of spec work or expect you to work for under poverty wages in order to get by. You want to value those people, you want to pay those people, and you want people to feel like they're adding into, like, contributing to what's really going on in the industry. So I try to keep the prices low, but like reasonable, because you got perceived value. I'm happy to pay $20 for a mothership. And have it be like staple bound and 20 pages, partly because I know that I'm supporting something that's like somebody's dream, that's small, and but I'm looking to put out a professional product, and it's professional size, and at least listen. When I first started, the system's been done since 2015. And in 2015, the landscape of role-playing games was completely different. If you went to Alliance Distribution, which is the largest distribution for reseller for role-playing games in the United States, and you said, I've got a game that is 8.5 by a 5.5 digest size, they would laugh you out of the phone call. They would say, well, if it's not 8.5 by 11, it's not going in. It's not going to be distributed because nobody will buy it, right? That was even just 5 years ago. But what's happened in the system is we've carved out this weird middle ground in the industry where you can have a digest size or a trade paperback size paperback book. And that is a wonderful space for publishers like me, because not everything should be a giant 8.5 by 11 hardcover. And so this makes things more affordable. It makes things easier for small publishers like me to reach an audience. And the audience that's right for the content. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
sorry. I just, as a publisher, I could just natter on about this
No, it's
all
this
day.
is really cool, and we certainly appreciate what you're saying. By the way, if you're watching us live, what do you think of this project? Are you excited by it? Let us know, and obviously hit like and subscribe and ring the bell if you want to find out what we're talking about next week.
And fund it.
Yes,
Yeah.
buy this. It's cool. And I have I paid for this out of my own pocket. There's no promo stuff coming my way. I didn't ask, to be fair. 'Cause, independent publishers, they don't get much money.
Yeah,
Basically.
I've set it up so that I might get paid if there's stretch goals, right?
Yeah. It's more a labor of love, right? And you've
Yeah,
been working
well,
on it for years. So very quick, let's look through the funding levels. This episode is probably going to overrun, by the way, but it's cool because we're not doing an after party today. So, James, what we normally do is we then move over to Twitch at 9 p.m. for an after party, but I got an early start tomorrow, so that's not happening. So we've got the hardship level, which is $12 Canadian, £8. The standard digital, which is $16 Canadian or £10. £14 for print on demand, and a digital edition, which is super cheap, 22 Canadian dollars. Then it goes to $35 for that, but with your name in the book, which obviously is going to be the one that I'm going for.
See, I wanted to set it up so that it was affordable for people, and but also if you want to contribute to the project, right? That's the difference of your name being in print. And I didn't see the need to have reams and reams of pages of people's names that may or may not want to be in there. Yeah. So you need to want it. And then, where you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Then if you would like James to run a session for you, I presume it'd be James. It might be someone else from the crew.
Yeah, it would be me. It would be me, probably.
Then you can bump up to £76 or 125, yeah. And if you want to be in the game, then there's only a couple of pledges left at $250, £152. Bruce, have you got any questions?
Oh, well, I've got many questions about life, universe, and everything, but let's focus on this game, shall we? And funny enough,
thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Wait, you're not the only one. While they've been chalking away, I backed it as well.
Oh, yeah. I'm good at spending our patrons' money.
Yeah, this is up my street. From it, because I quite like the idea of that emotional side of the game as well. I'm hearing about that. There is one thing I did pick up. I don't think we really heard much from you talking about it. You don't generally play one fighter. You can play an evolution of fighters. There's always like a generation.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever played King Arthur Pendragon by Greg Stafford. It's a wonderful role-playing game, but it has a kind of multi-generational aspect, and time advances at a fairly good click. Each game session in Fight to Survive is about a year. And it can be up to about 3 years. So the idea is that you're kind of filling in, like, these are the events of your life, and you're filling in that time. So you age fairly quickly throughout the 20th century. And the way injury, the way injury works, you could have lingering injuries, like, oh, that fight that I got into at the gas station in 1982, my shoulder never set right after that. And as you advance in age, it's harder to take the hits, and some of those injuries are going to stay. And if you've lost some comforts, like you couldn't save your girlfriend when she was kidnapped by that bandit in 89, and maybe you lost your dog because you got run over by that car, and whatever else, like, as you have fewer and fewer comforts to hold back the hardships, you may get to the point, or more and more injuries to prevent you from fighting, you may get to the point where the character you want to quietly, say they're just going to continue in the background, and where someone else is going to inherit that mantle. You'll have a successor. So certain aspects of your old character pass down to the new character. Like if you developed any fancy special moves, you can be like, here is the super secret technique that I didn't show anyone else, and now I've told you all that I have to show you, and then you continue on. So characters in succession have some pretty big advantages over making a character bear. Now, this is all happening like out of sync with each other as players. So as you continue through the years, somebody might be replaced by their son, and somebody else might be replaced by one of their martial arts students. And so you have like a chain of teachers and students and learning, and you present a martial lineage. Because I wanted to deal with the fact that there's a few fighting game RPGs out there, right? There's a few of them, but really, and not to knock them, because fun is fun for lots of people, but all you can really do with them is beat each other up, right? So I wanted to present a context and a living world to what's going on. And given the fact that you're sharing comforts and you're progressing through time and you're moving and you're creating this martial lineage, it means that it's not a one-off game. Which is the other criticism of the genre. Like when you have a niche game that has a very focused genre, people always think, oh, well, it's only good for one game or two games, whatever. But a Fight to Survive gets richer the more games you play because you have a history. Oh yeah, Riva's Diner. That's where we, some guy tried to rob it back in '92, and we had to beat him up, and Jerry got a bullet in his shoulder. Right? Like 1929. I remember when we were on the ship out there in the bay and blah blah blah. Right. So as you move on with your history with these characters and with these NPCs continues to get richer and evolve. So that's the kind of martial lineage that's established. Have you seen Cobra Kai? It's probably a good example.
I was about to go there.
Yeah. So Cobra Kai is a perfect example because there are fights and they're good fights, but there is a lot of context and passion and character motivation around those fights. And you have many different generations and years of fighters and of students and teacher structures at work there, that things can pass down from generation to generation. And those older characters are still relevant, but they're not operating in the same way as they used to. Right. And so trying to hit on that tapestry of I hesitate to say story, because what it is really is a narrative, a shared narrative that you guys are constructing together by virtue of play. It's a very easy game to run for me. I love running it because all I have to do is be like, that comfort's under threat for this reason, and I've got a couple of opponents ready. So I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. Like, you guys as players get to run rampant within a very solid structure that stays within the genre, and I get to find out what happens.
That's very cool. And it's collaborative storytelling at its heart. Where you have enough control to have an idea of, as a GM, to have an idea of what the initial threat is going to be.
Like Heavens, I didn't want things to feel arbitrary ever. Like as far as I'm concerned, a feeling of arbitrarity is poor design. So I wanted to make sure that, especially without there being too many rules, I would characterize this as being rules medium, that choices feel meaningful within what you're able to do. So that it's not just flight of fancy or yeah, sure, whatever. Like, I don't want to ever hear whatever within the context of somebody running this game. I mean, people will play however they want, but this game has been 7 years in development because I believe rigorously in what lives at the table and not what lives in the book. It's been play tested and blind play tested and gone to many, many conventions in order to bring you the iteration of the rules that currently exists, which is what existed at the table. There's lots and lots of things that I wrote that didn't survive at the table, but this is a game that is alive. So
very cool, and it's live right now on Kickstarter.
Good segue. Yeah,
please check it out. It's really, really fun, and I can't wait to see the finished product. We should probably move on as we're running a little bit late. James, stick around if you like.
Yeah, I'd love to, but it would just be to heckle. Is that okay?
That's fine. That's absolutely fine. You can heckle me and Bruce as much as you want.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah. You can show me how to heckle.
That's really. I mean, Bruce doesn't like being on camera because it means he can't heckle the comments. So you'll notice there's a lack of heckling in the comments right now, and that is why.
Well, somebody's got to fill that void.
Yeah,
exactly. So if you're watching live, feel free to heckle. Please also let us know what you think of this game. Vemberg, I know you've said already that you've backed it. I think it's really fun, and I was super excited the moment I saw it. So I'm really pleased to be a part of hopefully bringing that to completion.
I'm really glad that you guys can invite me on. I'm finding, and I have no idea what this means, but I'm finding an unusual level of engagement from the United Kingdom on this material.
I mean, we loved those movies back in the 90s and the 80s. We really did, and the 70s.
I was just really surprised at my, Facebook ad demographic was like 23% England. I'm like, what? It's because it's beating out most of the Canadian provinces and I was like, all right, fine, sure, yes, let's keep going.
And we used to have really full sections in video stores just for martial arts movies, and that's still very much the case. But back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was very much like a significant portion of video rentals. So that's probably got something to do with it. Let's move on and talk about this interesting campaign for. What do you think? Should we do Onyx Path or Borg?
It's your show. Go on, you get to choose.
Let's go with Borg. This will be nice and quick. So, Crawling Death Below the Dying Forest, a third-party Borg Mörk book. This is a book that has been always being created by the same people who have done that game that I totally forgotten the name of, Vast Grimm, which is like a science fiction Borg, basically. This is not science fiction though. As you can see, this is very much dungeon crawl material. New monsters, new occult treasures, new scrolls, and a bunch of rooms. So let's have a quick look through it. Obviously the art is awesome. The art always is. Let's see if I can get a little bit more on the page actually. There we go. Magic's all-powerful and ancient evils which must be stopped. Be part of the quest. You can make a project real physical item that will exist in the world. Get more, cheaper, obviously because it's a crowdfunding thing. And this is on GameFound, by the way, not on Kickstarter, in case you haven't noticed. Art style is great. It looks like they've got the same sort of layout that Vast Grimm has, which is, I don't know, I've got mixed feelings about it. It's trying so hard to recapture what Pelle Nielsen and Johan Nohr created, and Johan's art style is obviously really, really unique, and lots of people are emulating it, but you can kind of usually tell that it's an homage that we're seeing rather than work that Johan has done. And what they did in Vast Grimm, as you can see they've done here, is lots of text boxes. So the colours are correct, maybe, but it does feel very much like a sticker book in some regards. And I mean, that does make it easier to read, which is a bonus, but I do think it kind of impacts the production value, or the apparent production value when you compare it to maybe some other Mörk products, third party or otherwise. But the art is great. I mean, look at this. It's very, very much in keeping with the traditional styles. What do you get? 55 room, ever shifting dungeon crawl, which you can randomly generate, including specific rooms using 4 distinct adventure hooks, or include all 55 in an ongoing mega crawl campaign. I mean, you're going to have a lot of characters to make that work. Bruce, you've played Borg with me. James, I don't know if you've played it. It's so easy and squishy to die. I mean, one of the last times we ran it on the stream, one of our players died before they even got in the first location. Like, there was an encounter with a statue and some beetles, and they climbed out, and yeah, bye-bye. Spoilers, by the way, sorry.
I mean, part of the appeal of Mörk Borg is that everybody's so squishy, though, right?
And, yeah, totally.
And I just not to interject too much, but role-playing, speaking as a designer, a role-playing game book has to serve 3 masters, right? It has to inspire people, is one. That is to say, inspire people to buy it. Inspire people to look at it. The second is it has to work as a teaching tool. It has to be able to teach you the system. And the third is that it has to be a good reference book. So, and those 3 goals are often conflict. And one of the things I don't like, OSR is not my teacup, but one of the things I really like and really support about Mörk Borg is that it's lit such a creative fire under the community. And it is wonderful for inspiring people into play. So on a certain level, I don't even care what the content is. I think it's lovely, right? Because it's really gets that fire under people to get them out and get them playing. And
it totally does.
Yeah, and I understand absolutely what you're saying about how they're trying to apply some of the lessons from Mörk Borg without understanding the underlying structure, but of how you do layout. But even still, like, I love Gonzo stuff. and off the seat, and like passion. I don't care about execution as much as I care about passion in some ways.
Yeah, no, I get it completely.
So if it inspires me and it makes me want to play, then it worked. As far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as I said, these guys, this team, did Vast Grim. PDF of that is now available. I'm sure the physical stuff will arrive at some point. And it's really colourful, really fun. I haven't run it yet. I haven't finished reading it yet. We all know that it takes a while for me to read stuff. Not because I'm a slow reader, but because my brain just goes, nope, you've spent all day reading. Don't do more. But I think it's an interesting product, and it's not particularly expensive. Let's have a look. $20 rather, US, I presume, for the hardcover, which is really good value. Then we're looking at 10 for the PDF. Retailer for the books is $50 for 5, which is really good. And obviously they've got bonus stuff happening, unlocking all the time. There's a bunch of add-ons, Roll20, and general agnostic VCT assets. There's a some form of, and I don't think, they've put a description in now, they hadn't before. Below the Forest of the Dead cardography deck, 52 cards can be used in conjunction with the Crawling Death adventure. Map tiles and room numbers are the same. Colours of the deck are different than the colours in the book. Previous project that Brian created is a dungeon crawl in a deck. Okay. I don't remember that project, but I'm sure some people do. And I'm sure it's very good. Certainly worth throwing on there if you don't already have it. Then there's a couple of options here. You can grab the patch if you want an early backer. You can get some of the original art. And it's funding very well. It's coming up towards the 4K. I thought it was past that.
Nothing says funding like a slowly filling skull.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funding well. I mean, it's still got 14 days. Goal reached in 6 hours. Yeah. It's a Mörk Borg thing. It'll be awesome. Are you fans of Mörk Borg? Let us know in the comments. Have you run it? Have you played it? What do you like or hate about it? I think it's great. My favourite thing about what they've done with the actual Mörk Borg core rulebook is that no matter how challenging it might be to consume all the rules from reading through the book, they're all in the back couple of pages. You just got a couple of tables, so it's great. So it's very easy to play once you have a concept of the setting. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun as an add-on to supplement that. Certainly if you want to do something a little bit different, particularly if you've got a group that wants to go and explore a 55-room dungeon. I mean, hell, that's going to take a while. What do you think, Bruce? You've played Borg.
I think if you're going to explore 55 rooms, you better at least have 110 characters minimum.
Definitely. Goodness me. So I have backed this actually. I think it's going to be great. But as I said, I mean the layout's not quite there, but it does make it much easier to read. It just doesn't look as stylistically in your face. That's not a bad thing, because actually if you've ever read the original rulebook, it's quite hard to follow. The idea, I think there's some silly idea like you don't use the same font twice or something, you know, it certainly feels that way. Yeah, that's currently funding until, well, as I said, 2 weeks left. Check it out, it's on GameFound. That leaves us, we are kind of rattling through these to recapture some time. That leaves us with this little beauty. They came from the CYCLOPS'S cave, and they came from Classified. And straight out, I'm going to tell you, I hate this here. That really winds me up. That's enough to make me not want to buy that particular book. Because to me, it should, you know, this is just me being a dick, but it should like just be that.
Oh, you're just being persnickety. That's
yeah,
not
pretty
the same
much.
thing as being...
I like that. That's a much nicer way of putting it.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying persnickety.
I mean, you know, there are there are sometimes reasons why I don't back games which are purely because of things like that. It doesn't happen very often. They came from the CYCLOPS'S cave, and they came from Classified. And these are new source books, if you like, but I think they've got the rules in each of the books as well. New setting books under the They Came From ... banner, which is there are a couple of other
They came from Beneath the Sea, and
Right.
They Came from Beyond the Grave.
Sounds to me like Bruce knows all about it. Bruce, tell me about this project.
I'll confess, I'm only interested really in one half of this project, and that is
The
They Came from Classified. Right. The Classified, because that ticks my other love for the spy genre. The original Avengers, John Steed and Emma Peel. You can't get away from that. In fact, pretty much a knockoff right there. That cave one, let's just go over there because I know you get Cyclops' cave, is a little interesting. They seem to be trying to capture Xena, Conan. They're trying to capture that genre as well as.
There he is. It's kind of a Harryhausen thing, isn't it?
There is a Harryhausen, the Sinbad, Voyages of Sinbad there as well.
The way they warbled the text at the top made me think of pulp, right? Like a pulp fantasy.
Yeah.
Exactly that. And I'd really love to have these as books because it's all the storytelling.
Physical books.
Physical hard copy books.
Yeah.
And then I clicked on, you want how much for shipping?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was probably the biggest problem I had.
Let's have a look at that, because I feel exactly the same way. I mean, we've spent a lot of time here talking about the fact that I have far too many books on my shelf, and rather than going digital, I just buy another bookcase. So I would be in the position where you were of going, okay, I'm going to pick up the CYCLOPS'S. Gets better. The CYCLOPS'S cave.
You can't change those once the Kickstarter launches out.
Attention to detail.
Yeah.
Okay, so
you must have had one eye, right?
Yeah. I'm going to buy the
Classified
no
eyes. Yeah.
And then we're in the UK, $40 for shipping on a $55 book. I mean, I wonder how much it is over to Canada. Let's have a look. $35 for shipping to Canada.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, we are in a shipping crisis, right?
We are.
And I don't know that's why, I don't want to return to my Kickstarter, but that's why one of the big reasons why I chose to go print on demand is to try and separate out that cost issue, because if that's they're not in charge of shipping, right? And if that's how much it costs for shipping, I'm not sure what else they could do.
Well, you're right. And I get that they aren't in control of it, but there are ways and means, and I think that, I mean, for example, BackerKit now have got a process in place where you can pay up front for all add-ons that you want and submit your credit card, and they'll do the upfront deduction. I've always hated BackerKit because they wait until the credit cards are charged for whatever you've added in BackerKit as add-ons or whatever, and shipping. What BackerKit are trying now is more like the Pledge Manager approach, where you pay up front for everything. So you add things to your cart and you put in your details, and it takes the deductions for your add-ons, but then holding off until the order is locked before they charge you the shipping. And that might actually be a better solution here, because the reality is we don't know which way the shipping is going to go, and the shipping not only impacts the person buying the product, but also the people that like yourself, who are actually fulfilling it. So I think rather than speculating and potentially making it really wrong in either direction, just hold fire on the shipping.
No, I that's a good plan. I agree. I don't want to make any predictions, but there is a possibility that in the publishing world, shipping will just continue to get worse and drive people towards digital content.
Yep.
Right.
It's either that or you'll have more localized printing.
which what I think would be wonderful for the industry if we would pioneer more localized printing services.
Yeah.
But that might be too much to hope for.
I mean, even drive-through doesn't really solve that problem for people in Europe, to be honest with you. So, for example, because politically the UK has pulled out of the Economic European Union, if you're in Europe, like, for example, our friends on Patreon, many of our followers are in Sweden. And if they print something on demand from drive-through, it's printed via Lightning Source in the UK, and then they still have to pay shipping from the UK to Sweden, and they still get charged tax and all that sort of stuff. And for some reason, shipping to Sweden, as I found out to my own detriment when one of our backers in Sweden won something, it's not cheap. I sent it was like 100-page, maybe not even that, 60 or 70-page, like a US letter, perfect bound book. So not particularly heavy, just larger, just a little bit larger than you really want to send through standard mail. And it was, I want to say it was about $40 Canadian. It was expensive. So yeah, that it's not great shipping to continental Europe right now. It actually was for about $10 more. I sent a full 300-page book to the US.
Yeah,
So
I don't know. Like,
weird.
I mean, I would say there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason towards it. I'm not sure. Like, like Canada's very broad, right? So if I ship to something to British Columbia, it's 10 times more expensive than if I'm sending it to the United States. Just to Florida or something. Yeah. But like in some cases, it's cheaper for me to ship something to California than it is to go 10 miles north and hit British Columbia. So
yeah,
it's
all a bit weird.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this project. So we've got a couple of different options here. They came from the CYCLOPS'S Cave, tabletop role-playing game of mythical adventure. Players take on roles as warriors, explorers, tricksters, and all manner of paragons sagas are named after, while the director, the GM, introduces mystery, drama, and magical wonders. I mean, it's all sort of typical RPG fare. All the fun from Jason the Argonauts, Conan the Barbarian, TV series such as Xena. And yeah, I mean, the artwork is great. It's exactly what you'd expect. Bunch of archetypes, bestiary, and everything you need for running games. Clash of the Titans, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Kroll, Conan, and again, Xena. And a couple of quests you can run straight away. Bruce and I are both more excited by this one. They came from Classified, which is a tabletop role-playing game where players take on the roles of agents, inventors, assassins, and all manner of spies working on the side of freedom, justice, the Queen and country, or the president, if you're over there. But obviously, James is over there and will be fighting for Queen and country as well.
I will be fighting for Queen and country nonetheless.
Book is an avenue to From Russia with Love, Austin Powers, The Avengers, Not That Avengers, The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I think you could also do things like Prisoner from this as well.
Yeah. Danger Man, yeah, all that era of it, yeah.
Dempsey and Makepeace. 007. I think it's great. Andy, very good to see you. TCFTCC is not a good acronym. It's not a good acronym at all. I completely agree with you. This includes 5 archetypes, new archetypes, including the adventurer, the detective, the operative, the provocateur, and the quartermaster. And yeah, then they've gone through a whole load of other media. The Ipcris File, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, blah, blah, blah.
The Ipcris Files doesn't get a lot of love these days. I haven't heard that mentioned in many years. Yeah.
I think I saw they're doing a remake of it.
Yeah, there's actually a British TV remake on just now. And it's more closer to the book than the film, I've been told, which I have read the book, because the film isn't really like the book at all. But I need to still check it.
Cackney and Lacey, not quite. I mean, but sure.
Only if they worked for the CIA.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean,
Cagney and Lacey, the later years.
oh my god, now I've got that theme tune stuck in my
Oh
head.
no! I just realised it's Charlie's Angels, isn't it? That's what
Yeah,
he's going on a bit.
It's more Charlie's Angels than Cagney and Lacey for sure. I mean, you know, it's not the Golden Girls either, but.
Hang on a minute. I've just found my first adventure idea for They Came From Classified. You're a group of old ladies ready to save the world from evil's organization.
So what we need is a crossover between They Came From Classified and Brindlewood Bay, which I still needs to run.
So like an elderly Diana Rigg and an elderly Honor Blackman. And,
I'm in.
I would do it.
Yeah.
Charlie, I think a lot of people would play it.
Get right, Bruce. You're going to be bringing that to...
Instead of John Steed having a sword cane, it's your walkers, you know?
Yeah. And they've got like dart guns when you lift them up or something. That'd be incredible. I'm all over that.
Of course, when you fumble, you just fall over.
Trying to make a cup of tea and just, you know.
Oh no, that's always an automatic fast cup of tea making. And
whether or not you can carry it from the kitchen to the.
See, we've come up with an adventure for this already. We haven't even got the product, and we've got an adventure for this already.
So I presume that you're getting this as a digital.
I am, but
which you feel bad about.
They're doing the same as they're going to offer a print on demand through drive-through. But there is another thing that really kind of irks me about it. Yeah, it irks me because they talk about cinematics, quips, and tropes, which they did for the previous two games. The downside is that's going to be print on demand for cards for drive-through, and in the UK we don't really have anything. This is where the shipping goes up. So you're paying about 2 or 3 times for the cards.
Yeah. No, I don't mean to scheme too much, but shipping from Canada to Great Britain is substantially cheaper than one might expect. Like it's cheaper for me to send something to Great Britain than it is to the United States, oftentimes, or across Canada.
It's because we're the same country.
Yeah, well, I noticed that Modifius, when I'm buying things from Modifius, I order from the British store, and it's substantially cheaper than ordering it from the United States. So, you know, you may, I don't know if that's an avenue you can exploit, but just because I heard
it here first. So basically, James has kindly offered for everyone who's watched this video.
And that's how I became a profiteer.
You're just strengthening the Commonwealth. That's
exactly. I love the artwork for both of these projects. I think it's really cool. This is a great picture. That, not so much.
No.
I mean, that looks like concept art. That, you know, it's like a storyboard.
But it looks like old chapter books, like where they would have pictures on the left-hand side and the text on the right-hand, or the other way around.
That's true. Yeah. It really does.
Yeah.
Obviously, this reminds me of I can't think who that would possibly be.
I think he's an amalgamated Bond. You know,
No.
Do you think he's more of a Roger Moore? Or?
No, I agree with you completely. They've really tried to kind of get them all in here together, and and you can see the cues from various Bond movies here. It's a nice product, but the pricing is a real challenge. And Onyx Path do this. I mean, even with things like the Vampire and World of Darkness books that they've got, you can't now get them in print unless you go print on demand, and the print on demand prices from drive-through for those products, if you want a decent version, like a decent version of Vampire the Dark Ages, you're looking at £100 UK, which is just such a challenge. Just too much. Which is why I haven't bought it, actually, because I missed Vampire the Dark Ages, etc. when they first came around, but we're digressing. If you are on the correct side of the pond and south of the border, then it's a little bit cheaper. You can get these things sent to you for, let's have a look. Hardcover. United States is free shipping. Glorious. Either that or they'll charge you later, but it looks like it's free to me. Digital we're looking at $25 for either. And hardcover is $55 for either of them. They do a double feature, hardcover $105 or $45. So I will likely back this at $25 personally. The classified one, that's the one that appeals to me. But it is an interesting product. Let us know what you think. And if you're going to be backing it, let us know which version you're getting and where you are in the world and how you feel about that shipping. I think that's... wow, we're at 9 o'clock as well. That's pretty good timing. We managed to nail it.
It's almost like you know what you're doing. Gosh.
Oh. One thing you learn is how to have an internal time clock and then ignore it. That's been great fun. James, thank you so much for joining us. So if you have come in late to the show and you've been watching live, then skip back to the beginning. Obviously, we're on YouTube, so you can do that. James has been telling us all about his super, super awesome role-playing game, which is currently funding on the old Kickstarter. And that is, I'll just show it up on the screen again. That is Fight to Survive, which is a gritty role-playing game inspired by the martial arts movies of old, where the stakes are high and personal, and you're not a superhero. I think it looks really cool.
That should have been my tagline, like the game where you're not a superhero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, please, anybody who is interested, please fund Fight to Survive, role-playing martial arts meets heart. Thank you very much.
Why is it in German? I don't know. It keeps switching to German. It's really weird. It's done it again.
Because we want to appeal to the German audience as well.
Sure. We don't have any German viewers. Hang on. Let's switch that back again. I've got no idea. I think it's a bug in Chrome because I've seen the same happen on my work machine, and I'm not on a VPN, and I'm not in Germany, so work that one out.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for having me on today. It was wonderful to talk to you.
You too. Yeah, so bear with me a second. Yeah, we've had a great time. I hope you've all enjoyed it. Please let us know what you think of all of these products in the comments. If you want to see more from us, we will probably be back next Friday to talk about 3 more products that are on crowdfunding. And we've got a couple of live action actual plays coming hopefully fairly soon. We're just kind of trying to get the scheduling down for that. But in the meantime, I want to say again, thank you to James for joining us. Thank you to Bruce, always a pleasure. And thank you for watching us. And yeah, I hope your dice rolls maintain being much, much better than mine always are. I tell you, the last few games I've played have been a nightmare. And the last one, Deadlands, nearly died several times. Oi, the perils of being a role player. Thank you, everyone. Take care and good night.